Hey, this is Antonio. Welcome back to my channel, working out some fighting words. But before we go any further, as always, I need for you to like this video and please subscribe to my channel. So this is a very important week, a very big week, fight week. It's important and big because it's a unification bout between Canelo Alvarez and Caleb Sweet Hands Plant. So, a lot's going on. A lot has been said between both camps. And, a few things that I'm not really understanding, a little bit from Canelo. So one, I would just say, I don't know why he's so overly angered by Caleb Plant. I mean, it's not as if Caleb Plant has said anything that somebody else didn't say. I mean, if anything, Triple G, I would argue that he disrespected him more. I mean, you're from Mexico, and he's saying you're not even fighting in a Mexican style. Or he also said you didn't really win that fight. So, I mean, if anything, I would make the argument that that would give you grounds to be more angry at that than anything that Caleb Plant had said. But like, it's weird why what it could also be just hitting me at the top, the dome. It just could just be that maybe he needs new motivations. I mean, he's been doing this for so long. He's been pro since he's like 16 or 17, I believe. 17, I think. I could be wrong, but maybe you just need new motivations because he's starting to speak that lingo that guys speak when they've been doing this a long time, or they've been not doing this a long time. Anybody's been in a sport, I guarantee they got like 10 years plus or something under their belt. But I mean, at the top for a long time. And he's like, all the guys, they just say the same thing, they're going to do this to me, they're going to do that, it's all the same, and that's what Floyd began to say at the end of his career when it was just like, clearly it was like punching a clock to him. It was like, you know what, on Saturday, I'm going to fight this guy. I'm more than likely going to win, and then I'm going to leave. It just became a job, and you can tell it was a job. Like his last couple fights, his last couple real boxing matches, not the spectacles, the real boxing matches. It was just, you could tell it was a job. It was just like, oh, here we go again. We're going through the emotions. I have to pretend to be the villain. I have to do this and do that, but really I'm just trying to make it to that Saturday night. I'm going to win more than likely by unanimous decision. I'm going to walk out there with a fat check. It wasn't until he had his bout with Conor McGregor that you saw like a spark in Floyd Mayweather. Like he was happy. He was happy to engage his opponent. And, I'm starting to see those same signs with Canelo Alvarez. He's never been the most vocal, but at the same time, like he always expresses his love for the sport of boxing. But at the same time, there's not like, I don't know, like, how do I say it? It doesn't sound very passionate. When you've just been at the top for so long and these guys aren't posing the biggest challenges to you, but if you want to challenge, fight David Benavidez, or both the Charlo brothers, you get a little bit more of a challenge, but that's neither here nor there. He's fighting Caleb Plant, so I'm going to stick to that on this video. But, I've been noticing in him lately where it's just like, especially with this fight and the promotion for this fight, he seems like, I don't want to say complacent because I think that's a bad word to use. He clearly has that spark. He clearly trains hard. But at the same time, when you've been doing something and you've been so dominant for so long, sometimes it could just kind of seem like you're in the motions. And it doesn't seem like, if you don't feel, how do I say it? If you don't feel like you could be touched by this opponent, there's times when two guys fight and you're like, I really don't know between these two. I really don't know. Like, Sean Porter and Terrence Crawford. Honestly, I really don't know because let's be honest, both of them could be, have moments where they get a little chinny. So I really don't know. I will be doing a video on that, a breakdown coming soon. But I really don't know. Every once in a while, it's like, I really don't know. And then you get a fight like, with this, and it's so funny because people just naturally just take sides. And, oh, it's definitely going to be Canelo. And it's just like, well, he's been so dominant lately. I'm like, well, if you want to speak of dominance, I would say the guy who's undefeated. Like, if that's if dominance is your argument, you would naturally have to go with the guy who's undefeated. If that's gonna if that's what you're gonna base everything on, not skill set. Like if you're just gonna base it on, well, he's been dominant. Okay, well, he's undefeated. He has a loss, and I would argue he has three losses with GGG and with Lara. And with Floyd, that would make three. So, I mean, do we really want to go there? Do we just want to say because he's been dominant? That's not a great reason to say somebody's going to win. In fact, I would say, that's not being responsible. It's picking sides and it's just not being responsible. Uh, that's it just sounds like a street fight. Like who's fighting? My man and that dude over there. Who's going to win? Well, my man. Why? Because he's my man. Like that's a horrible reason to believe that somebody's going to win. That's a horrible reason to believe that somebody's going to win. It doesn't make it literally it makes no sense. So I don't want to get into that or anything. I already made my fight breakdowns. Now let me talk about Caleb Plant. So normally when there's a fight of this magnitude, and you, like I said, you have a unification bout. But not only that, you have somebody who's very popular and very in high demand in the sport. So Canelo Alvarez, Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, people like that who were just really high. Now the problem with that is when they're here and you have a guy coming in, he typically is just going to be somewhere around here. Now it's not just a thing of I got to meet you on the night of and I have to raise my game to here, but it's also everything leading up to that. And you have to engage the reporters. You have to engage, and I mean fully engage the press conference. You have to engage the questions, regardless of how repetitive they may be. You have to engage with all that stuff because if you win, all this comes with it. But I mean, if you're planning on losing, it doesn't really matter. But if you win, all this comes with it. Now, Caleb Plant has taken a pretty funny stance, right now, where he's, I don't know how many people have noticed, but there's like this little trend with people who fight Canelo, and you'll get people who say, well, I'm just coming to pick up a check. Billy Joe Saunders actually ended up started doing that. He was, oh, I'm just here to pick up my check, because clearly I can't beat the great Canelo, so I'm just here to pick up a check. And now you get Caleb Plant saying, well, I'm just here to pick up a check. It's not like I'm going to win. I'm just here to pick up a check. And it's like, don't get caught up in that. Say what you feel, say what you mean, but also you need to fully embrace all of this. Okay? You need to, because right now I feel like Caleb is showing Canelo, I'm not comfortable with this aspect of it. And if you're not comfortable with this, well, there's going to be more lights in the night that you two fight than you've ever seen in your life. So if you're not comfortable with this, you're not going to be comfortable leading up. You're certainly not going to be comfortable in the night. You're already not going to be comfortable in the night because it's a unification bout. Also because you're fighting Canelo. And then because it's the biggest fight of your life. It's the most amount of lights you've ever seen. The biggest crowd that you've ever seen. So for you to sit there and be like, oh, I'm just going to show up and I'm going to do my thing. No, I wish I could just tell him, you need to fully embrace this. Because whether you know it or not, I think you're also giving Canelo, like, he's afraid to answer questions. He doesn't even like a camera in his face. And he thinks he's going to beat me on a... That's how I would be thinking. I mean, and I've seen it before. I remember Floyd said that before. He's like, I can't remember who he's fighting, but he's like, if you don't want to embrace this, what do you think you're going to do with me in the night of? Because it's going to be this and me in that ring. So you need to get used to it, buddy, because this is what's coming. And lastly, I want to talk about, so Canelo's saying this is not going to distance. Now, Caleb Plant never actually said it's not going to distance. No, we have Andre Ward for that. So now Andre Ward is saying it's going to be a knockout, which again, now if you remember my last video in the breakdown, I'm saying, what is Andre Ward's position? Because he flat out said, I'm not in his camp. I just like the guy and I've seen him train and he's really dedicated. But I also know that Andre Ward has been, see, the thing is he's been really strategic. He himself has not attached himself to Canelo. He's let other people around him attach himself to Canelo. He's let Virgil Hunter, his trainer and godfather, has called out Canelo. Oh, you can't beat. Dre would do this to you. Dre would do that to you. He's let Tim Bradley. Tim Bradley has made like a few statements, like ongoing, especially across the span of like the last 2020 to 2021. He's made a few statements, attaching Andre Ward and Canelo Alvarez's name together. Now you get Andre Ward saying, well, I'm not even in his camp. I've just seen the guy, and I think he's going to knock him out. Now, maybe he's speaking from the heart. And you know what? I don't know the guy personally, so you got to take it at face value. Maybe he's trying to hype a fight, but he said he's not in the guy's camp. He's not making any money off hyping this fight. Okay? So then you think, well, the only logical thing would be that he's trying to attach himself to Canelo's name. So if by chance Caleb Plant does not win the fight, Canelo would be like in his post, fight conference, yeah, I won. And where's Andre Ward for saying that I get knocked out? Why not? I mean, why? Listen, it's not the most inconceivable thing in the world that he would naturally think to say something about Andre Ward. He's not going to say anything about David Benavidez or the Charlo brothers. No. He's going to be like, who's the person who's been talking since, like, who's been playing strings and has been in the background and just kind of lurking, right? Andre Ward. So when he's celebrating, and tell Andre Ward he got it wrong. Tell Andre Ward he doesn't know what he's talking about. Tell Andre Ward he don't know boxing. Tell Andre Ward to stay retired. Tell Andre Ward to stay out of my business. Which would give Andre Ward, of course, the in to respond, and that could possibly create something. Because Caleb Plant didn't say he's going to knock him out. Honestly, that's his best. He's not going to win a 12-round decision against Canelo Alvarez. Like I said, the only way Caleb Plant wins a 12-round decision against Canelo Alvarez is if Canelo Alvarez looks like Rocky after 12 rounds. Like his eyes are swollen shut and his nose is bleeding all over the place, and he's got a gash on his forehead or something like that, and Caleb Plant doesn't have a scratch on his butt. That's the only way. And who knows? It might be a no contest. Who knows? But I don't believe, not after what I saw, Triple G do with Canelo in that first fight. I'm sorry. You're not going to do what he did. You don't punch as hard as him, so you're not going to do what he did. And honestly, I would make the argument that, Lara had, I'm not going to say he had an A, of a grade for his performance with Canelo, but it was a B+. I mean, he clearly won that fight, and he didn't win that. And that's when Canelo didn't have half the name that he has now. There's no way Caleb Plant is going to win this fight without making Canelo either look like Rocky or knocking him out. Now, I think the likelihood of knocking him out, little slim next to none. But you never know. It's boxing. It can happen. I mean, who thought Vitor Belfort was going to knock out Evander Holyfield, despite how old Evander Holyfield is now? Who thought that was going to happen? Who thought Buster Douglas was going to knock out Mike Tyson? Who thought Joe Corey was going to, knock down Muhammad Ali? Who thought Muhammad Ali was going to beat George Foreman? Who thought young Cassius Clay was going to beat Sonny Liston? So, I mean, anything can happen in the sport of boxing. Anything can happen. Anybody can get clipped. What's the likelihood of it? I would say on the lower percentage, but it could happen. It could totally happen. So, I think there's a lot of interesting facets about this fight, to be honest. how do I say it? Yeah, I think just I'm not even gonna go there because I already said it. I definitely think Canelo is just kind of in the motions, and I don't think it could. You know what? It could also be with Canelo. I don't think. I know, I think he's the type of guy who respects anybody who walks in the ranks. I don't want to say he doesn't respect Caleb Plant, but I don't think he thinks Caleb Plant is on his level. So therefore, it's like, yeah, I'm just going in on Saturday and I'm gonna do what I typically do. I don't think he respects Caleb Plant the way he respected Triple G. I'll say that. And I don't think I'm wrong in saying that. I don't think I'm wrong in saying that. And it could just simply be that. Uh, Caleb Plant, I would love it if he showed a little bit more enthusiasm. And maybe, in his case, it's just tunnel vision. And like, let me just get there and do what I do best. And then afterwards, I'll talk all the trash in the world afterwards. It could be that. It could very well be that. But historically, the guys who don't embrace this part don't embrace that part.